Hey, this is Jacob and I'd like to welcome you to video number 4 of Storyteller series. In our last video, I walked you step by step on how to create your story. So if you missed that, you can click on the lowercase I in the upper right hand corner and it'll take you directly to the previous video. Now by this point, we've gone over what makes a good story, the elements of a story, and how to create a story. Now comes the fun part. Telling our story. To do that, I outlined 7 tips that will have you on your way towards becoming a master storyteller. Tip number 1, use a hook. A hook is a literary technique that opens the story in a way that grabs the reader's attention. A hook can be anywhere from a couple of paragraphs in a short story to several pages like a novel. If you're just starting out, a single sentence will do. There are many different types of hooks, but for this video, I'm going to give you 3 to choose from. The puzzler is a hook that raises questions that puzzles the reader. For example, I'm never really sure if it's a real memory or just something that's become more solid over time, but I'm sure that my mother once tried to murder me. This hook leaves the reader with more questions than answers. Is the narrator just making stuff up? Why would the narrator's mother be trying to kill him? And why isn't he or she sure if it's a real memory or not? The weatherman sets the atmosphere of the story and draws the reader in without even realizing it. Here's an example. The sky was a shade of midnight. The pavements shined with drizzle and reflected lights from lampposts and car headlights. I splashed along in my cozy rain boots. The key to making this hook work is to be as descriptive as possible with the environment. If you're going to use this hook, ask yourself questions like, is it hot or cold? Is it day or is it night? And what season is it? Etc. Lastly, there's the painter, which focuses primarily on the visual elements in the surroundings. If your audience is primarily visual people, then this hook will be especially effective on them. Here's a quick example. My apple red rain boots shone as they splashed through the puddles on a black tar pavement. Multicolored cars raced past, cutting through the drizzle in the dark of the winter night. There's a statistic that gets tossed around that 65% of the human population is visual. Now that may or may not be true, but we do know that many of us are, making this an effective hook to employ in your storytelling. Tip number 2. Be authentic. Now this might seem obvious, but it's easy to forget that when you try too hard to storytell, especially if you're just starting out. You already have the structure to create a story, but there's no structure that can be given to being yourself. Either you are or you aren't, and if you're not, then that means you're trying to be someone you're not. Get comfortable in your skin and let it flow. Tip number 3, have a point to the story. There's no fun in telling a story or listening to a story that just goes on and doesn't seem to go anywhere. In order for your storytelling to be effective, you must be purposeful. For example, if you're an entrepreneur, then you can deploy storytelling to sell your product. If you're a public speaker, you can use storytelling to sell more seminar tickets. If you're a coach, you can use storytelling to motivate your team to give it all they got. And these are just a few of the many ways you can use storytelling. When your story has a purpose, it has a better chance of it resonating with other people. Tip number 4, show, don't tell. Telling a story is an opportunity to let your creative juices flow. Anybody can recount a particular sequence of events occurring, but it takes a storyteller to take those same sequence of events and make it come to life. For example, instead of saying, Billy felt nervous, why don't you describe how Billy felt? Does he have butterflies in his stomach? Are his palms sweaty? What's his internal dialogue? When you mention details like that in your story, the reader will be able to put 2 and 2 together in his mind and come to the realization that Billy is indeed nervous without having to say it up front. Tip number 5, omit any irrelevant details. I'm a big believer in the idea that less is more, and this idea applies to storytelling as well. After you've written the first draft of your story, look it over and take out whatever isn't important to the story. Irrelevant details may include characters, settings, or situations that aren't relevant or distract from the main purpose. If you're using storytelling to sell more products to your customers, you don't need to recount your entire life story. Use only the relevant parts that relate to your purpose. Tip number 6, use a good structure. If you're using the structure from the previous video, then this shouldn't be a problem. In any case, your story should have a logical structure to it. Otherwise, you will end up confusing yourself and your reader. Storytelling is both an art and a science, and part of the science is having a solid structure. No matter what structure you decide to use, it's important that your story, at the very least, has a character, a desire, and conflict. You can think of it as a metaphorical 3-legged stool. Remove any one of the legs and it's doomed to fall. Tip number 7, practice makes perfect. There's no shortcut to getting good at storytelling, and you certainly don't get good at storytelling by not telling stories. Now, if you're just starting out, then you need to be okay with the fact that you won't be very good at first. Challenge yourself to write a new story every week or at least once per month. Practice telling your story in front of people that will give you honest feedback and constructive criticism. And most importantly, have fun. Humans have been telling stories for ages, and once you get good at it, you'll be able to captivate any audience you can get in front of. This also works for written stories as well. And that concludes this video as well as this video series. Leave a comment below and let me know if you got value from this. If you want to stay connected, make sure you hit the subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you can be part of the notification squad. This is Jacob Laguerre signing off. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.